You might know today's guest as the best-selling author of books like Ketotarian and The Inflammation Spectrum. Dr. Will Cole's newest book, Gut Feelings, dives into the gut-brain connection, revealing that the gut and brain are more connected than you might think. Dr. Cole is a force in the wellness space, helping people heal their bodies and lives through functional medicine. We're chatting with him about his new book and more. This is Advocate Now. Dr. Cole, it is so incredible to have you with us today. You know, we live in a society that's obsessed with diet culture, but tends to see diet as a completely separate entity from overall well-being, especially as it relates to the mind-body connection. At what point in your life did you first come to understand that mind-body connection, and what made you want to build a career around it?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it predated my professional, focus. In hindsight, I was, I guess, kind of a strange teenager. I grew up I'm really fascinated about nutrition, and in high school, I would go to the health food store and buy the latest superfood I read research about, and I biohack, I guess, before biohacking was a thing in the '90s, and then that really formed me wanting to be formally trained in this. So I went to an integrative medicine school in Los Angeles and really immersed myself in clinical nutrition, functional medicine, wellness. And I graduated. After I graduated, I started one of the first functional medicine telehealth centers in the world over 13 years ago at this point. So my main focus is really figuring out complex health issues with people that are going through brain health issues like anxiety, like depression, like fatigue, hormonal problems, autoimmune problems, digestive problems. Those are my people to really figure out what's going on for them, and running labs and getting to the root cause. You're absolutely right. People, there's a divorce between mental health and physical health. And that's really what I wanted to educate people on in Gut Feelings in my latest book, because mental health is physical health, and we need to really make that connection to heal.
You mentioned your new book, Gut Feelings, which is an incredible book, by the way, and it does dive into this deeper. So, to start off, what is the gut brain connection?
Gut and brain are formed from, and when I say gut, I mean the intestines, the
Mhm.
stomach, the large intestines, and the small intestines. The gut and the brain are formed from the same fetal tissue. So when babies are growing in their mother's womb, they are formed from that same fetal tissue, and they're inextricably linked for the rest of our life through what's known in the scientific literature as the gut-brain axis, so the connection between the gut and the brain. So there's far-reaching connections between the two. I mean, for example, 95% of serotonin, our happy neurotransmitter, are 95% of them are made in the gut, stored in the gut. 50% of dopamine is made in the gut, stored in the gut. So we're talking about our happy neurotransmitter, our pleasure neurotransmitter, predominantly are made in the gut and stored in the gut. And if you think about it, even physically, the intestines kind of even resemble the brain. And I mean, when you look at the research around the microbiome in the journals, the medical journals, the collective term for all the billions, trillions of bacteria in the gut, it's depending on the study that you look at, upwards of 100 trillion bacteria in the gut. The microbiome is influencing the way the brain is expressed, impacting our mood, impacting our energy levels, impacting hormone health, impacting cravings of the foods that we crave. So there's so many reasons why the gut is known in the research as the second brain. So that's just scratching the surface of this, far-reaching implications of both.
Well, you mentioned you're a functional medicine practitioner, which I believe is probably the most effective approach when it comes to our health. But what is functional medicine for those who aren't familiar, and how would you say that it fills the gaps created by conventional medicine?
Yeah, so the main differences between what I do in functional medicine and what we'll call like conventional medicine or mainstream medicine. And to me, I think it should be a both and conversation, not an either or. And I think you're absolutely right. Functional medicine really does fill in the gaps where mainstream medicine has its place. And we should come together and be the best of both worlds. But what we do in functional medicine is we run more comprehensive labs than typically are ran in the conventional setting, because they're trained in the standard model of care to diagnose the disease and match it with the medication. So there's a place for that. Some people need to be on medications and are alive because of medications. We just asked the question in functional medicine, what's your most effective option that causes you the least amount of side effects? For some people, medications fit that criteria, certainly. But many people, that isn't the most effective option, but yet it's the only option given. And we in functional medicine are showing people, okay, what are the underlying reasons of why you have the problem in the first place? It's most of the time not a medication deficiency of why they have the problem in the first place. So we want to look at things like underlying gut problems, and I deal a lot with chronic Lyme disease and mold toxicity, or some people have nutrient deficiencies, some physiological thing, or in the conversation that I'm having in gut feelings, the feeling side of gut feelings, it could be unresolved trauma or chronic stress that's dysregulating the nervous system and raising inflammation levels in the body. So we're running more comprehensive labs in functional medicine, and we're also looking at labs using a thinner reference range. So anybody that's watching this right now will know, okay, when I get my lab, there's my number on a lab, and then I'm getting compared to this X to Y reference range interval. We get that reference range largely from a statistical bell curve average of people who go to labs. People that predominantly go to labs, sadly, are people that aren't feeling so well. So we're in functional medicine. If you take people with health problems out of that reference range, what's left is, where does vibrant wellness reside? Where does optimal human health live? That's the functional range, where your body is functioning the best. And that's where we get our term functional medicine. So we're looking at optimal, not average. So we can, if you're not in the optimal, let's figure out why you're not and get you there. And then we realize we're all different. It's bio-individuality, and there's not going to be a cookie cutter, one-size-fits-all approach to getting well. There's many examples of that, but to look at something like thyroid health, there's a lot of reasons why someone have low thyroid function. It could be an underconversion of T4 to T3. It could be Hashimoto's disease, which is an autoimmune condition. It could be something called thyroid resistance. There's a lot of variables. So to make very sort of reductive generalizations of complex health issues, a lot of people fall through the cracks of that. So we really want to look at the sort of comprehensive individual approach to healthcare. So that's in a nutshell what we do differently.
Yeah, and you mentioned the emotional aspect, because you say in the book that mental health is physical health, even though we like to separate them in the Western world. And I have personally always felt that on such a deep, almost intuitive level. So I've been very conscious about reducing stressors in my life or things that aren't aligned. Would you say that that's a vital step in terms of improving our overall health, is simply being in alignment?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think in the book, I call them metaphysical meals, right? It's like we are eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? And we can eat foods that love us back, or eat foods that don't love us back. And that's influencing our physiology, right? Every food we eat raises inflammation or lowers it. There's no like neutral food when it comes to human physiology. And inflammation is the commonality between just about every health problem under the sun. I mean, autoimmune conditions, brain health issues like anxiety and depression are inflammatory, research shows, hormonal problems, metabolic issues. I could go on and on. But look, the feeling side of gut feelings, like chronic stress, will raise inflammation levels just as much as that food that doesn't love you back. But it's a lot more nebulous, right? Because it's very prescriptive for me to say, okay, these foods, research shows, will raise inflammation. If you don't have those, will lower inflammation levels and you'll feel better. But it's a lot more to unpack and complex to say, well, stress raises inflammation, because how do you tell someone just don't have stress, right? It's a lot more complex. So to really cultivate these practices that research shows will help your body's resilience against stress, will shift your nervous system more into a parasympathetic, resting, digesting, zenned out space. That's the stuff that it doesn't happen overnight, but we need to start training our nervous system and our body to be more resilient when it comes to the external world or stress.
Dr. Cole, I could talk to you for hours. Such incredible information. Everyone needs to check out your new book, Gut Feelings, Healing the Shame-Fueled Relationship Between What You Eat and How You Feel. Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm Sonia Baghdadi. Thanks for watching and advocating. For more stories and content like this, visit advocate.com and advocatechannel.com.